So we've written a plugin, and now I want to show you how you would go about writing something like a fuzzer. And a fuzzer is a way of actually looking for vulnerabilities in an application. And at this point, we're actually going to be looking at potential vulnerabilities in a web server. So you can see I'm in opt metasploit apps pro MSF3 modules auxiliary. I am changing into the fuzzers directory. You can see it's broken out by protocols at this point. And again, the same idea as when we were writing a scanner plugin. I can just go into one of the directories here and just see what we've got for things that we may be able to use as a starting point. So here's a fuzzer here where we're sending long URIs. So I could use this as a starting point, since what I want to do is write an HTTP fuzzer. And of course that's what I did. So let's take a look at this HTTP bogus RB. And I actually used one of the other fuzzers as a starting point here. Again, it gives me the framework and the structure of the plugin, and I've given it a name because I really want to fuzz the verb or the request. And so we're going to be sending bogus verbs or requests to web servers. I've added some options here, and I'm going to do a request, and here's where we actually do the request. We do a socket put, and here's the verb and the URI, and then HTTP 1.1, we're sending host. The data store is where all of the options are. So here we're checking the data store and pulling out the option vhost, and that's if we're using virtual hosts and where we might want to do a host in the HTTP headers. So if there's a virtual host, we need to send a host in the host field. So now we're going to send the data and we're going to get some responses back. Now here's where I actually do the fuzzing. And what I'm doing is I'm just getting a bunch of random alphanumeric text. And now here's where I set the different parameters that I'm going to be using. Here's where I get the fuzz string, and now I do the HTTP GET with the verb or the request and the URI, and then we set a timeout there. So let's take a look at how this actually works in Metasploit. Now, beyond that, I'm doing a little bit of exception handling. And again, if you're not familiar with exception handling, this is something that a lot of the scripts actually have because it helps determine whether there's been an error. So you can take the framework or the structure of the exception handling from whatever module you're using as a starting point or as a pointer to how you may actually write the particular Metasploit module, and then you can make whatever alterations that you need to make. So we are in here now, and actually want to just search for bogus, and we've got HTTP bogus. So I'm going to use auxiliary fuzzers HTTP bogus. Now the nice thing is, all I had to do was create this file over here, and it automatically got added into Metasploit. Metasploit knows where it is, and I could search for it. And I'm going to use that now, show options, and I'm going to set our host 172.30.42.55. And let me actually get into that one so we can actually see what's going on here. So I'm going to get into the Apache directory, and I'm going to tail the log file, and that's going to be access.log. So now if I do run here, we should see a lot of requests hitting the server. And you can see that these are really just bogus requests, and the server is actually handling them just fine. And so the module execution is completed. We can see that all of the requests were handled. You can see what it looks like. And we actually got a 500 level error. So we did get an actual error from the server, but it didn't actually halt execution on the server, so the server stayed intact and up and running. But that's actually how you would build a server using some of the Metasploit built-in modules and using the framework. And using the framework, you could execute the fuzzer and see whether you can actually knock over some services, and that may lead to potential exploits down the road.